Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. First of all, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me here today and for having the opportunity to speak at this important conference. I would just like to say I agree with everyone, with everything which has been said, except one. Being Austrian myself, I slightly disagree that Austria is always a civilized country, but that just as a footnote. When traveling here and spending a little bit of time of thinking about the cultural and creative industries, its role in Europe and in society, and of course the role of copyright as a legal institution, I would like to start with outlining and emphasizing something we often forget when we discuss copyright as such. It is indeed the right and the law of the art. Copyright, whether we want to turn it into author's rights or copyright in the Anglo-American sense, is the law of culture. It is the law of music, of literature, of dramatic art. And it's remarkable in the sense that when those lawyers and civil servants drafted copyright law and drafted the Berne Convention a couple of decades ago and started to establish a regime for the art, that we believed from a very strong philosophical and conceptual background that in rewarding authors, we will benefit society. And it's interesting to look at, on the one hand, the UK-based approach or the Anglo-Saxon-based approach, which is more utilitarian in the sense that if you reward the creator, if you reward the author of a work, you will ultimately have a positive outcome for society as such, because there will be more works of art, more literary works, more dramatic work in society. Thus, we will have a more healthy intellectual society. Or if we look at the continental civil law European approach, Central European approach, which obviously Croatia is part of it, that there is indeed an inherent link between the author and his or her work. This is strongly influenced back in the days by the Enlightenment, by Immanuel Kant and Gottfried Fichte, who understood author's rights as a natural right. And the moral center of this regime, of this legal regime, the raison d'être of copyright, is indeed the author and authorship as a concept. Now, when we, in the course of the last century until today, gradually expanded the set of exclusive rights and amended it or harmonized it on a European level, it is important to not forget that the author is the justification and the legitimization of setting exclusive rights and of enforcing them on the latter state. And this system, and also the approach or the concept that creating a work of art is not a spontaneous improvisation. It is the result of labor of the mind. It is the result of research. It is the result of inspiration and sometimes also collaboration. Especially it is the result of intellectual effort, that this labor is resulted on education, on acquiring knowledge, on training. So there's a lot of effort in that. But that this entire system is the source of the cultural and creative industries we have been discussing earlier today. And it is remarkable when we now today have figures which had been highlighted and emphasized by Emmanuel Barroso, the President of the European Commission, that the European cultural and creative industries amount to up to 4.5% of Europe's overall GDP. Now, this is remarkable in times of financial crisis, in times of job unemployment, that our industry, your industry, which is part of the European concert, amounts to this amount. In total, more than 8 million jobs. So this is the creative force in Europe, and it is, I think we shouldn't be shy and underestimating the role of the author in all it. Indeed, the author is the source of it. Now, obviously, we are challenged by a new digital environment, and I think I wouldn't do my job if I would come here from Brussels, not telling you a little bit what we are working now on in Europe in my organization. And highlighting, I think, the background and the philosophical concept of copyright law just now, and looking at how the European Commission perceives copyright law, we will see that there's a certain distinction or a certain difference. And there's probably a real job to do of the creative industries, of the authors' organizations, to re-emphasize and to put the value of it. I would like to cite the first sentence of the copyright unit of the European Commission dealing with copyright. It stated that copyright and related rights provide an incentive for the creation of an investment in new works and other protected matter, and their exploitation, thereby contributing to improved competitiveness, employment, and innovation. Now, this is not bad in as such, but I think it misses the point, it misses the perspective, what we outlined, that copyright is the right of the art. The language of investment, exploitation, competitiveness, employment, for me, being a representative of Europe's composers and songwriters, is too much looking like an investment right. And when we have to work with the European Commission in particular, we do our job at best, and I think conferences like these have a tremendous value in saying that, yes, of course, copyright shall also reward those who invest in the creation of new works. I refer to publishing companies or record labels, but most importantly, it is the author at the source of it who, through his exclusive rights, should be protected. Now, through the advancement of the digital environment, and especially the EU internal market, it is important to stress that the European Commission, in the sense, is the guardian of the EU treaty. And one of the treaties is the free movement of goods and services. The problem we face is that works of art, which have in culture and in law through copyright a very distinct role, are treated on European level as same goods as others, as physical goods, as cars, as toothbrushes, etc. And obviously the European Commission decided quite a while ago, perceiving copyright as part of the internal market, to go into a harmonization program and to harmonize certain aspects of the different regimes in the national countries. We have today, as of today, 9 copyright directives. Most importantly, the 2001 directive of the Commission, which harmonizes the reproduction right, which harmonizes the communication to the public right, and one exception. I don't want to go too much into detail, yet a fundamental principle which had been affirmed by the European Court of Justice in several cases is that copyright as such remains territorial. So rights have to be acquired on a national level and enforced on a national level. And in light of the digital revolution, we can even say, and in light of the digitalization and the dematerialization of carriers of musical works, the European Commission identified a number of problems with regards to cross-border provision and access to music services. I'm taking a little, maybe a realistic point of view what is happening right now. It is maybe a little bit technical for some of the authors here in the room, but I think it is important that, and this brings me back to where I'm working from, organization built and and regrouped by authors and composers, that creators are aware of the fact that copyright and authorship is being now reviewed on a European level. And as member of the EU, decisions which are taken in Brussels and at the Court of Justice in Luxembourg and obviously in Strasbourg have a direct impact and effect on Croatia. Now, the problem is further that on the one hand we have Emmanuel Barroso and some in the European Commission which truly acknowledge the cultural and creative industries and therefore implicitly copyright as the fuel of it, and acknowledge its role in diversity, in building Europe as a confederation, that the same Commission, Neelie Kroes and some others responsible for the digital agenda, openly say that copyright, due to its territoriality, is an obstacle to the digital single market. I would even go that far in saying that it appears that some in the European Commission, we will have new commissioners coming in soon, but still we don't know if it will be the same or others, but some are really dazzled by the digital fever and wants to pursue the digital market to whatever price. Indeed, they believe that copyright as such needs to be changed, needs to be harmonized, needs to have further exceptions in order to have the digital single market. And I think it's important that we have businesses and we have the cultural industry speaking up, raising awareness that the fact that we don't have Netflix in every European country, that the fact that Spotify is not in Romania or iTunes is not in Romania has nothing to do with copyright. It has to do with a business decision of Apple. It has to do with a business decision of Simfa. I had dinner the other day with a representative of iTunes in the framework of the Global Repertoire Database, where we're working together. And after a couple of glasses of wine, we discussed the reform of copyright law. And I said, well, you know, Romania, it's not enough money there. It's not worth investing in it. So they will wait until it grows economically, and then they will invest in it. Yet they're using this argument to say, well, we need to have further exception in copyright law and review the EU copyright acquis. And this is a kind of a paradoxical situation that we have on the one hand the same Commission saying, great, culture and creative industries, 8 million jobs, fundamentally important, copyright is the fuel of it. And on the other hand, the same Commission, another department saying, well, let's review the copyright acquis. Now, whilst the first part, which I discussed just now, is this kind of the state of the art and the role of the creative industries as such, I would like just to talk very briefly about what is the challenge in the next decade. And being this a conference of authors in the creative industries, I believe it is fundamentally important that authors, as those who testimonied in this video, take responsibility how their rights, copyright, will be drafted in EU. Last week in Brussels, the Commission published a consultation with a couple of questions on reviewing the EU copyright rules. This contains, I will not go too much into detail, but it contains also a question to limitations and exception, and a new phenomena which you certainly know about, which is very much talked about now, user-generated content, which refers to a practice on social media sites where users, teenagers, users in general, it can be also me, using pre-existing works, adding onto another work, changing it a little bit, and then saying, well, this is my work now. Little creative effort, very simple, copy and paste to bring it together. Here we go, a new work of art. The problem is that we have some in the Commission saying, well, let's have new exceptions for that. What about moral rights? What about the author feeling the integrity of his work violated by that? Now, obviously, we need the creative industries, but most importantly, the authors, as they did today. 500 authors wrote a letter, an open letter. It was published in The Guardian against the data violation and the spy by the NSA. We need these 500 authors writing an open letter to Emmanuel Barroso and to the next Commission. Indeed, what we need to do, we have to set up a common European concerted lobby strategy where the authors and their industry speak up for themselves and make sure that the 8 million jobs you want to have and maintain and develop in the next decade are further developed. And if you change a working system for risking a digital agenda, you don't know how it will work. You might have a significant negative outcome. So let me also refer very briefly to an aspect which is frequently discussed, and again, which is a little bit technical, but I think which is of fundamental importance for the promotion of niche and minor repertoire, especially in countries such as Croatia or mine, Austria, and a system which is at stake on European level. It is the private copy levy. The consultation in introducing this chapter says, I cite, with the constant development in digital technology, the question arises as to whether the copying of files by consumers who have purchased content online also triggers or should trigger the application of private copy levies. Now, let's be honest, this is an implicit meaning that let's get rid of it, and in the digital agenda we need a new system. Indeed, I wonder, and I've looked up a little bit what can be used with private copy levies and what is really its role in niche repertoire. I don't want to promote here the Austrian society, but being Austrian myself, I knew where's the exit of it, and I know there's often criticism to transparency. The money is used for the pockets of big CEOs, for expensive flights, but it is not used for the repertoire or for promoting new works of art. Here I have a list of more than 800 beneficiaries of Austrian music. These get sums of 500 euro, 300 euro, 1,000 euro. Here we have a young orchestra who got 800 euro for its first performance in Krems. Now, if we get rid of that systems, in total it's 800 beneficiaries. I doubt whether this budget will be included in the budget of the next government. Certainly it will not, and certainly, with all respect, I prefer having authors and composers and publishers deciding on how this money is used than civil servants working in a ministry with a very or limited knowledge on how music is created and what is the role of music in general. Now, indeed, I think we have a certain challenge, but we also have opportunities. And the opportunity is certainly that, on the one hand, we have a functioning industry which is building new business models, which is embracing the digital environment. I referred earlier very briefly to the Global Repertoire Database. We have also a directive which will soon finish on collective rights management, which will simplify and facilitate cross-border licensing of works. But at the end of the day, we also realize now that the internet as such lost its innocence. We have the problem of data protection. We have the problem of digital violence, of harassment in the internet. And I think this is an opportunity for authors to say, with regards to data protection, for instance, hold on a second. Social media sites are using my pictures of my holidays, are using them as they want and put advertising next to it because they see our interests. Well, if I shoot a picture during holidays, I'm the author of it, and I own the copyright on that picture. Now, I think we have tremendous opportunities to work together with consumer organizations, to work together with many others in this now Data Protection Act, which will soon be drafted, to bring authors' rights back to what it is really about. It is protecting the work of the creator. Now, I would like actually to wrap up a little bit and conclude with saying that, yes, of course, we have to pursue the digital agenda, and the digital environment is also providing great opportunities for authors, but by reasonable means. We cannot compare the European Union constantly to the USA. A fair use exception which works in the USA, which has a long juridical tradition, will never work in Europe, where courts are kind of experienced and used to have detailed list of exceptions. And I think that the European model, which is linguistic diversity, which is cultural diversity, which is diversity of repertoires in music, literature, arts, etc., etc., this European model is unique and is indeed based on the cultural and creative industries, which uses copyright as its fuel and which has at the source the author of it. And the new Commission will need to take this into account and will need to draft a real cultural agenda for the creative Europe, and obviously together with a strong protection of authors. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you for this. This was a brief introduction. Maybe you have any questions or debate. Thank you again for having me here today. It was a pleasure, and I look forward to the debate. Thank you. No question? Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.